Hello, my name is Monica Blake, and I'm here today to talk to you about the rise and fall of Nebraska Cornhusker football. So, I'm from Nebraska. I was born and raised there. And being from Nebraska, um, you're almost guaranteed to be a Husker football fan. Basically, everyone in the state is. This stems from the fact that the state of Nebraska has no professional sports teams. So, really, the only teams we have to cheer for that are right at home are the teams at the University of Nebraska Lincoln, and this is especially with their football team. So, because of this dedication from the fans, the Nebraska Cornhuskers currently hold the NCAA record of most consecutive football game sellouts. This number currently sits at 361 games and has been a record since the season of 1962. Since then, the program has gone through ups and downs, and I am going to discuss that in this presentation today in a detailed report. So, to put that record in perspective, Notre Dame is in second, and they have 249 consecutive games sell out. And then Oregon is in third at 110. So we are way ahead of the next teams in that consecutive sellout. It's a very big accomplishment. And because of the rise and the current fall, people are worried that that might be an issue and that record might not last very much longer. So to get things started, I'm going to talk about three main eras of Husker football. First is the Bob Devaney and Tom Osborne dynasties. Second is the post-Tom Osborne era. And third is the present-day slump. So, to start off, we're going to talk about the Bob Devaney dynasty. This is the beginning of a new era. He accepted the team when they had a .368 winning percentage. That's really bad. One of the worst in FBS football at the time. His first season was in 1962 when that record started. And so his first season, he went 9-2. And Husker fans were like, oh, this is pretty cool. So they started going to games, which explains the beginning of the sellout record. But from there, he had four more similar fashion seasons where he had winning seasons. And then he had two seasons, actually, where he had a losing record. The offensive coordinator at the time was Tom Osborne, and he suggested changing to an I formation offense. And this really catapulted the Bob Devaney Husker team into a very winning team. The next four seasons under Bob Devaney amassed an overall record of 42-4, four conference titles, 18 All-Americans, and two national championship titles. So really, Devaney's role at Nebraska was huge. He actually then decided to go and be the athletic director, which moves us to our next coach, Tom Osborne. He was promoted from the offensive coordinator into the head coach position, and there was no stop in the dominance of the Husker football program when switching from Devaney to Osborne. Specifically, Tom Osborne had he coached from the team from 1973 to 1997. He is our longest coach ever to have gone through Nebraska football. He amassed a total record of 255 and 49 in those years, and he became the fifth most winningest coach in Division 1A football. He never won more or less than 9 games in a single season. To describe the dominance of Husker football under Tom Osborne, you just have to realize that we were at the top for so long. Teams under Osborne were named the scoring explosion and the best team of all time. He developed plays like the Fumble-Rooski, and he led teams in games now the game of the century against Oklahoma. So Nebraska fans got used to this. They got used to the dominance. They got used to winning. And so in his final years, from 1993 to 1997, there was no downfall. He actually had a 60-3 record. He only lost 3 games in his final years. And in 1997, his final year, he went out on a national championship. That had really not been done very much, if at all, in that time. And when he was leaving, his quote in a press conference was, "One guy's moving out. But in terms of the overall program, in terms of stability, in terms of our ability to get the job done, not much is going to change." And really, he couldn't have expected what was going to happen next. So that's going to move us to the post-Tom Osborne era. Two coaches were in this era. It was Frank Solich and Bill Callahan. So starting off after Tom Osborne was Frank Solich, and he coached 6 somewhat successful seasons. He went 58-18 in those 6 seasons. He won a Big 12 North Division title, an outright conference championship, and made an national championship game appearance. But the athletic director at Nebraska at the time was Steve Peterson, and he was worried that he would be nabbed the reason for the downfall of Husker football because Frank Solich wasn't quite performing at the way that Tom Osborne did. So he decided to fire Solich before his contract was up and hire an NFL coach who had just coached his team to a Super Bowl. This was Bill Callahan. And what's ironic about this is that Steve Peterson actually is nabbed as exactly what he didn't want to be. The reason for the downfall of Husker football, because our downfall really didn't start with Frank Solich, it started with Bill Callahan. So in his first year as head coach, Bill Callahan went 5-6 with the Huskers. This was Nebraska's first losing record since 1961, and that happened in 2007. So worst season in a long time. The next 2 seasons showed improvement. He had a winning season. They went okay. I think they won about 9 games. However, in 2007, Nebraska lost 5 games in a row for the first time since 1958. And they also posted the worst loss at home in decades. So the athletic director, Steve Peterson, who hired Bill Callahan, was fired. Tom Osborne came back home, replacing him as athletic director. Tom Osborne then fired Bill Callahan and hired Bo Pelini. Which brings us to our last topic, the present-day slump. The 2 coaches under this are Bo Pelini and Mike Riley. Bo Pelini actually had a pretty successful time at Nebraska. He had a 9-4 record in his first season, which was actually the best record posted by any of the 28 first-season coaches that year. But he also coached into the Big Ten transfer. So we went from the Big 12 conference to the Big 10 conference. And in his years in the Big Ten Conference, he didn't ever win a conference title. He would have winning records. He would go 9 or 10-4 or 5, but we were losing games that mattered under Pelini. We were losing them by a lot. So when we moved to the Big Ten, the expectations for Nebraska fans of Husker football heightened even more. They wanted to get back to our former dominance, and we were playing big teams that could do that. But we'd win all these games under Bo Pelini, and we'd lose by a lot to these big-name teams, and even some teams that were easily beatable. So it really just wasn't good enough. He was doing okay, but he wasn't doing great. And another thing with Bo Pelini is he had a really bad temper. So this showed on the field and in press conferences, and that's just not what Nebraska football is known for. So this combination of not doing super well and also having a really bad reputation, Nebraska fans didn't like that, and they wanted him out. So we hired Mike Riley. Again, we fired Bo Pelini before his contract was up. But we hired Mike Riley, who, the best way to put this is, a good guy, but a bad coach. Mike Riley went 6-7 his first season. They made a bowl game, but barely. It was based on team GPA. And the next season showed improvement. There were butterflies in the stomachs of many Nebraska fans. Could this be it? Could this be the year of the Husker comeback? The answer, absolutely not. We ended up going 9-4, so we won the first 7 games, so we then went 9-4 and had big losses. We lost 60-3 to Ohio State, and we actually ended up unranked at the end of the season. What followed was the 2017 season, which is this year. It was a disastrous season. Many records were broken, but not the kind you want to break. We went 4-8. Again, the worst season since 1961. And the losses were blowouts, but not just blowouts, but blowouts at the prestigious Memorial Stadium, packed full of those 90,000 screaming fans. Mike Riley was fired the day after the last game. So in conclusion, the question is, what can be done to bring the Husker football team back to its former dominance? And I have a few suggestions I would like to recommend. First is the firing of head coach Mike Riley. And actually, this has already been done. And I think it was the first step in moving forward with the program. Second is hiring Coach Scott Frost of University of Central Florida for the head coach position. Frost was the quarterback at Nebraska during our last national championship win in 1997. He brought a struggling University of Central Florida football team from 0-12 to a current 12-0 in 2 years as head coach. Third is stick with the contract and trust the process. The last 4 head coaches at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln were terminated before their contract was up. Teams can't improve with this constant coaching change. So with these 3 steps, I think it's very important because we need a coach who does not only have the football ability to bring us back to our former dominance, but can connect with the fans. And they need to give him a chance, at least 5 years, which is about the normal length of a contract, to bring us back, because it usually can't be done in the 2 years, but he has done it in that amount of time. So I think he is the perfect fit. Scott Frost is the perfect fit for Nebraska football. And I think with these steps, it is possible to get us back to that point. Many people will say it can't be done. You just can't get back to that dominance. But that's what people said when Bob Devaney adopted the Husker football program with a .368 winning percentage. And he turned them into a glorious national championship winning football team. So, in conclusion, I'm Monica Blake. Today I've talked about the rise and fall of Husker football and some recommendations of what can be done to get us back to that former dominance. So thank you for listening.